All sports, all plays. All sports, all plays. All sports, all plays. 365, we making up plays. You talking the game, get you through the days. We're high in the court, the dime in the lane. Variety topics never the same. All presentation, sports information. In the airways, taking the nation. All sport, all plays. They work in your faces. Grace up the field, so tie the laces. All sports, all plays. Network. All sports, all plays. Network. We on top of our game. All sports, all plays. All sports, all plays.
What is going on, everyone? This is Nate the Great coming to you live from the All Sports, All Plays Network. I am here with Greg Hot Seat Galano. How are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good, Nate the Great. I bet you're just smiling from ear to ear with all the news going on in Denver right now.
Colorado Avalanche, it's probably something that I'm going to be talking about tomorrow. But with the Denver Nuggets, I'm going to be, covering that in on Real Talk later today. How I felt about all those trades. But this is not a basketball show, and this is not a hockey show. This is a baseball show. So, but before we go into the topics, we do have some housekeeping to take care of. The first up is Suzanne Paparazzi's Jewelry.
Suzanne's Paparazzi Jewelry, 24/7 shopping available. 160920 is the code. Show her some love, like she showed us, from all of us here at the ASAP Network.
And now, Misty Meadows. I just wanted to remind everybody that if you're out there watching this show right now and you want a free t-shirt, all you have to do is like the show, share the show, be engaged in the show, comment. And the person that has the most comments by the end of the month wins a free t-shirt. But say for a second you're out there and you can't you missed the show for whatever reason. You're driving, you're listening through audio, whatever the case is. You could still get a shirt. Just message one of us. Message Greg, message myself, message anyone on the ASAP Network. And is $14.99 plus shipping and handling from the sizes go from small to 2XL. If you wear a 3XL or if you wear something bigger, it costs $1 or $2 extra, but it's not something that is a big deal. All right, so Greg, you get the pleasures of starting off with the first question. We do this every week, and we started off with the New York Mets. We did the Atlanta Braves, and now we're doing the Miami Marlins. So, Greg, what is your top 5 Miami Marlins pitchers? Now, I do have a question for you. Do you want to go 5, and then I go 5, and then you go 4, I go 4? You want to do it like that?
Yeah, we can do it like that.
Okay, so what is your number 5?
My guy in the 5 hole is probably Josh Johnson. He pitched from 2005 to 2012. He was 6'7", big, hard-throwing right-hander from Minnesota. I think Brendan Herrera would like that. He had a complete arsenal of pitches. He was on the path to stardom. He was part of a pitching tandem. I mean, every pitcher in the lineup in the mid 2000s had like 10 plus wins for each starter. So that was a lot to be said for a franchise that was kind of, not really spending a whole lot of money, especially on pitching at that point. But Josh Johnson, he kind of had a lot of problems, some arm issues. He underwent Tommy John surgery and everything. And so he never really hit that next peak into superstardom just because he had some injuries and stuff. But a lot could be said about him. He was a great pitcher when he was healthy. But as we know in professional sports, if you can't stay healthy, that really kind of eats away at your legacy. And that was definitely a problem with him. But when he was on the mound, he was pretty solid for those 7 or 8 seasons they put in for him.
So, my number 5 is Josh Beckett. He pitched from 2001 to 2005. He was, he was possessed by blazing fastball. He has a record high of 98 miles per hour. That is, but failed to leverage it towards any kind of qualified success until the end of the 3rd season. He had a 2-hit shutout against the Cubs of Game 5 in 2003 of the NLCS. He was on a 3-game rally to overcome the Chicago Cubs. In Game 6 of the World Series against New York, he threw another shutout on 5 hits at a Yankee Stadium to clinch the Fall Classic against a heavily favored Yankees. So he had a lot of great postseason success. Going to the year 2004, he finished just 9-9 as he suffered from frequent blisters. He improved to a 15-8 the following year. And then he unfortunately left the team due to free agency, but he had really, really great postseason success, which is why I put him at number 5. All right, so what is your number 4?
Well, before I get to the number 4, I misspoke a little bit. That rotation in 2006 that I referred to that had 10-plus wins for the rotation, 4 of those starters were rookies. So it was like the first lineup ever to have 10-plus wins, in their starting rotation. So that was pretty impressive for the the Marlins to have 4 starters that were putting up 10-plus wins. Especially, in 2006, they weren't really, they were just okay, but, they had a good start to something. So I just wanted to tell you that 4 of those guys were rookies in that starting rotation. The number 4 guy that I have on my list could easily be, if he were still alive, probably making his way into superstardom by now. That's Jose Fernandez. As we may recall, back in 2016, sadly, his life was cut very, very short in a boating accident. But yeah, Jose Fernandez, he pitched for him for 3 or 4 seasons from 2013 to 2016. He was a definite bright light, for an upcoming Marlins team, that's trying to make some moves and everything. His story is incredibly sad. He fled from Cuba to get here when he was in his mid-teens. He was this, from what I hear about how he was with his teammates and everybody, he was well loved by management. He was well loved by his teammates. He put up some really good numbers. He went 16-8 in 2016, and then his untimely death, happened. So, it's hard to say. I mean, he could easily be working his way up towards the top spot right now if he was still with us. But that's who I have in my number 4 spot, just because, he only pitched for 4 years before he died in his early 20s.
For me, I'm actually gonna go with a guy that pitched for 4 years. His name is Dontrell Willis. He was a southpaw in Oakland, but it was all too brief, flickering out before he turned 30. The accomplishments of the D train were enough that remains a franchise leader in wins until Ricky Nolasco passed him in 2012. Willis, captured the attention of the baseball world in 2003 as a 21-year-old. During the Marlins' second championship run, his 14-6 record and a 3.30 ERA still earned him NL honors as Rookie of the Year. After his sophomore effort, Willis appeared to graduate to a big-time ace in 2005, leading the NL with 22 wins and 10 losses and 5 shutouts to become the first and only 20-game winner to date in Marlins history. He finished second in the Cy Young vote to the St. Louis Cardinals' Chris Carpenter. Completing his pitching success, Willis was reported with a bat in his hands. He hit a .234 with 8 home runs and 5 triples in his 5 years at Florida. And once in 2005, he was placed 7th in batting order, which highest standing for a pitcher since 1973. Okay. So what is your number 3? Who do you have your number 3?
You there, Nate?
I'm sorry. Who do you have as your number 3 pitcher?
You got yourself a text, dude.
Who do you have as your number 3? Can you hear me?
You got yourself.
Okay. In the 3 hole, I have Josh Beckett. You've already alluded to him, Nate. He was one of those guys that could have been another what-if guy. He showed moments of brilliance in his younger years. Definitely had one of the greatest games of his career in Game 6 versus the Yankees, pitched a shutout in the World Series. Had great success. Was a big part of that success early on for their first championship. But he was another player that the Miami Marlins, they really had high expectations. And after a few seasons and after the World Series, they were expecting more of a Cy Young kind of ace performance out of him. And he kind of went around 9-9 and then 13-8. And then the Marlins just kind of said, well, we can't really afford to keep him. So like the Marlins often do, they build up a team and then they break it down and they unloaded Josh Beckett to the Red Sox along with Mike Lowell. And I think they got like Hanley Ramirez and one other player in return out of that. But yeah, the Miami Marlins were always trying to cut costs and everything. And I don't know if they really didn't have a lot of faith in Beckett too much after his World Series success. I know that he had like frequent blisters for a few seasons, and so that kind of kept him out of the rotation. And he just didn't seem to have a lot of the magic that he had during his World Series performance. So he went on to have some decent success with the Red Sox, But he never was quite the masterful pitcher that he was when he was around 22, 23 years old, with the Marlins. So that's why I have him in the 3 hole.
My number 3, you kind of alluded him earlier. Jose Fernandez, and he pitched from in 2013 and 2016. He was on his way, as you said, to being one of the best pitchers in Miami Marlins history, but due to a boating accident in 2016, he passed away, unfortunately. Fernandez, just a little bit of background about him. Fernandez in 2005 fled his native Cuba, and like most defections of its island nation, his escape didn't come easily. At one point, the 15-year-old Fernandez had to dive into the Gulf waters to rescue his mother, who had fallen overboard. But that's just a little bit of background. Getting into his career, in 2013, by accidentally beating a star hitter in Glaciano Stanton in the spring scrimmage, he quickly became bigger, more and positive news by jumping from A ball to the parent team to start the year, improving his presence. A terrific Rookie of the Year effort, posting a 12-6 record with 28 starts and with a 2.19 ERA, second only to one man, Clayton Kershaw. He was off to another dynamic start in 2014 when his elbow broke down, leading to Tommy John surgery and causing him to miss major chunks of his 2014-2015 campaigns. Fully healthy in 2016, Fernandez reaffirmed his excellence with a 16-8 record and 2.86 ERA with 29 starts and 253 strikeouts with just 182 innings. No pitcher has ever struck out more in fewer frames. Fernandez was particularly indomitable at Marlins Park, including going undefeated through his 26 starts here. Yeah, he won his first 26 starts in his in the Marlins Park. He was 29-2 with a 1.49 ERA in 42 home outings. So, if his life didn't end so early, I would probably put him at number 1. I'm just saying. But going into number 2, Greg, who do you have in your number 2 spot?
I have a guy that you had a little bit further down your list in my 2 spot, just because when he was really shining, he was a very, very bright light for this organization. So I have Dontrell Willis as my number 2. The sad thing about Dontrell Willis is that he retired at the age of 30. He was on fire early on in his career, and he just kind of, fizzled out. He had great success. He was a Rookie of the Year in 2003. He won 20 games, which was the first time ever that a Marlins pitcher had ever won 20-plus games in a season. He had 5 shutouts. He just was a high-energy, flamboyant type pitcher, had lots of energy, brought a lot of excitement to the game, put up some pretty good numbers. And then once he started hitting his late 20s, The Marlins just kind of decided to move on. And I don't know what it is about Colorado or Detroit, but that just seems to be where a lot of players end up going when their career is about ready to start tanking. Because once he went to Detroit and Denver, it was all over. And he made numerous comeback attempts and everything, but it just didn't pan out. So, he went through a handful of teams trying to come back, and he just was never able to regain the success that he had early on in his career. But, you said it earlier, he is fantastic with the bat for a pitcher. It's not too often, I hardly ever see it. I've seen it a few times with Joe Madden where he'll put like a pitcher in the 8 hole instead of the 9 or something. When he was managing the Cubs, or when he was managing the Rays, sometimes when they'd play an interleague game. But Dontrell Willis was so good with the bat that sometimes he would get put in the 7 hole, which was a very high spot for a pitcher, to be inserted in the lineup, because as we know, they're usually just kind of dead last, expected to bunt or just kind of go up there and take up a little time during the game. But Dontrell Willis, he was able to hit 8 home runs, like you said. He had like a handful of triples. I mean, that's quite a feat for a pitcher. You don't hear of too many pitchers being able to hit, more than a couple home runs, maybe if they're lucky over the course of their career. So he was pretty good with the bat, and he definitely had some definite skills in his early to mid 20s, but he just couldn't quite hang on. And I think that's kind of the theme of this list, is kind of like what ifs, what if
Yeah. Yes.
The what if list,
My number 2 is another guy that you had on your list, actually. Josh Johnson. He pitched from 2005 to 2012. Is a big, 6'7", 240 pounds right-hander. From like the Minnesota area, threatened to become one of the top aces in the game with the Marlins. So as long as he stayed healthy, and that always seemed to be the hard part. So that injuries was the main issue for Josh Johnson. He was great as a rookie. Part of the rookie, ensembles, like you said, rookie group of 2006, and become a part of the first rotation in Major League history to feature 4 rookies with 10 plus wins each. So out of every Miami Marlins, Miami was the only team to have 4 rookies with 10 or more wins. In his path to stardom, took a detour a year later when he underwent Tommy John surgery, as mentioned earlier in a previous spot, for a bad elbow. He fully recovered in 2009 with a 15-5 record, but really took off in 2010, winning an NL ERA crown with a 2.30 mark, while going 12 straight starts in which he allowed 3 or fewer runs. So you mentioned your 1. You mentioned your 5, your 4, your 3, your 2. Now we're down to the final guy. Who do you have at your number 1?
Well, before I get to the drum roll here, I'm just gonna put this out there for the last man that commented about wanting to see a Orioles, jacket or something. So.
Oh my gosh.
So this is for you, Marty. I actually do have an Orioles sweatshirt too. Yeah, I'm not gonna break it out right now though. So, got to represent my Cardinals. But yeah, my number one pitcher that I have is Kevin Brown. Kevin Brown from, he only put in like a couple seasons, 96, 97. Was able to pick up a World Series with them. Interesting fact about Kevin Brown is, during the 1997 postseason, he ended up getting the stomach flu, and he had to overcome the stomach flu. And then shortly after he recovered, or was recovering from the flu, he ended up pitching 140 pitches in a complete game in the NLCS. Now, sadly, he wasn't able to keep up that success during the World Series, as he lost a couple of his starts to the Cleveland Indians, but he was a great part of that success. The ace of that pitching staff, although Josh Beckett and a couple other guys kind of picked him up in the World Series because the Indians were pretty much had his number for some reason in his 2 starts against them. But yeah, Kevin Brown, he was an excellent pitcher for him. I would say that he was overall a very good pitcher. Sadly, the Marlins decided to just kind of break it down again after much success. Broke it down and got rid of him, and he ended up getting sent to San Diego, and then he ended up with the Dodgers, and he wasn't quite the same pitcher. As we've said before, a lot of these pitchers get injured and deal with injuries and stuff, and I think Kevin Brown kind of might have dabbled a little bit in the drug world, with steroids and everything. So he kind of had towards the end of his career, that kind of stuff hanging over his head. But while he was with the Marlins, he is definitely a constant, consistent presence that was a very solid pitcher for him. So I have him as the number one pitcher for the Marlins, even though he played the shortest amount of time in a Marlins uniform.
So for my number one, I also have Kevin Brown. Now I get it. In his first 10 league seasons in the American League, he was great, but he never had gotten his earned run average below a 3.30. But when he moved to Florida in 1996 and had a 2-year run with the team, man, that's where things really changed, for his career. In his first year, he had the National League best earned run average of 1.89, ending a 3-year run of ERA titles by incomparable Greg Maddux. Despite the outstanding remark, Brown finished second in Cy Young vote to Atlanta's John Smoltz, who benefited from more wins, 24 to Brown's 17. A year later, Brown's ERA rose to it wasn't the best, but it was still respectable. Of a 2.69 and a 16.8 record. He threw the major's only no-hitter of the year when he shut down the San Francisco Giants on June 10th. He's the only base runner he allowed came up with 2 outs in the 8th when he plunked a pinch hitter to Marvin Bernard. During 1997, Brown's last days with the Marlins, he overcame the stomach flu, as you mentioned, to throw 140 pitches in a complete game. Game 6 victory over the Braves to clinch the NLCS. But he fell flat to the World Series starts against Cleveland, losing both to the Indians and the opposing starter Chad Ogea. So moving on to the next topic. We're done with the Miami Marlins pitcher stuff. By the way, just a little bit leading into next week here. Next week we're actually going to be talking about Philadelphia's pitchers, Philadelphia Phillies. We're going to be talking about their starting five next week, so stay tuned for that. But we're going to be going into our next topic. We're gonna start this 2010 decade, and we're going to be talking about the best, the all-time starting, the best players from each position in the 2010 decade. So, Greg, we'll go with yours first.
Okay, this is a very competitive
Mhm.
roster to come up with. I mean, we had some very, very tough competition, but this is what I have for my Major League Baseball team of the 2010s. So, and a few of these guys are probably, going to be on the 2020s team, when it's all said and done here at the end of the decade. Catcher, I got Yadier Molina. Of course, how can I not go with my main man, from the Cardinals? He's played the most games in the 2010s, a backstop. I mean, Cardinal for life. Just an excellent leader, on and off the field. What can I say about Yachty? He's just an excellent defensive catcher. He hits for a decent average. He's just a very solid performer back there. So at catcher, I have him. Then I got first base, Miguel Cabrera. Miguel Cabrera, he was a huge part of that success too, as we were talking about, the late 90s Marlins, coming up when he was 18, 19 years old. Started out at third base. But yeah, he hit for the Triple Crown in the 2010s with the Detroit Tigers, and he just tore it up. I mean, he just, he's hit a ton of home runs, hits for average. He's just an excellent first baseman during that decade. Second base, I got Jose Altuve. If we have time, we may get to talk a little bit more about him, maybe if we get to the second base topic later. But Jose Altuve, a great defender, hits for a lot of power, especially for someone his size. That's like 5'5", 5'6", excellent bat speed, great defense. Him and Correa, can turn double plays like nobody's business over there for the Astros. Shortstop, another guy that's going to be in the mix for the team of the 2020s. Francisco Lindor at shortstop. He's another excellent defender, very speedy, can steal some bases. He's got a lot of pop in his bat. So I got him as my starting shortstop. Third base, recently retired Adrian Beltran. What can I say about Adrian Beltre? The guy is pretty much a lock for the Hall of Fame. He's hit, well over 400 home runs in his career. Excellent defense. Sadly, wasn't able to get a World Series ring or anything, but yeah, he put up some big time numbers, especially in the 2010s. In the outfield, a couple of these guys are going to be in the team of the 2020s. I got, probably the best player in the game still, Mike Trout, Mookie Betts, and then a guy that unfortunately has been injury prone the last few seasons, but in the 2010s, he absolutely tore it up, Giancarlo Stanton. That's my starting outfield. I went with a 4-man rotation for my starting pitching. I have Clayton Kershaw, Madison Bumgarner. Okay, Madison Bumgarner is definitely not the pitcher that he was during the 3 World Series titles with the Giants that he had, towards the start to middle of this last decade. But Madison Bumgarner was definitely a terrific pitcher from 2010 to around 2016 for the Giants. And then I got Max Scherzer, who, as we remember a couple seasons ago, had that epic Game 7 pitching performance against the Astros to seal the deal after he couldn't even get out of bed a couple mornings earlier, with neck pain and back pain. So I got Max Scherzer as a starter, and then I got Justin Verlander as the last pitcher on my list. And then if you want to throw in some closers, I went with a couple closers. I'd probably have Craig Kimbrell be my setup man, and Aroldis Chapman be my main closer for the 2010s. So that's who I have for my starting lineup.
For me, I'm going to start off with catcher, just like you did. I'm going to go with Buster Posey as my catcher. He started his first season, came in 2010, his first full season. He quickly, right after that, became one of the most, arguably one of the best, most decorated catchers in history. Winning Rookie of the Year in 2010. Winning his first of 3 World Series titles with the San Francisco Giants, including one to my Texas Rangers. During his second championship season in 2012, he also led the National League in hitting with a .336 and won NL MVP honors. Along the way, Posey made 6 All-Star teams, picked up 4 Silver Slugger Awards, and a Gold Glove in 2016. He led all MLB catchers in hits with 1,378 runs scored at 594, RBIs at 673, and batting average at .302 in the decade. So every time he came up to bat, that was his stats over there. First baseman, I'm going to go with Miguel Cabrera from the Detroit Tigers. No, Detroit historically hasn't been, the best, especially recently with sports, but Cabrera, during the decade, establishing himself among one of the greatest right-hand hitters of all time. Cabrera won 4 out of 5 AL batting titles between 2011 and 2015, averaging a .340 average across those years. He won consecutive AL MVP honors from 2012 to 2013, competing baseball's first triple crown in 45 years in 2012. His .317 average led all of baseball for the decade. He also finished in top 5 for hits, doubles, RBIs, and now we're going into second baseman. I'm going to go with Robinson Cano. Cano led the decade in hits with 1,695 doubles at 363 and total bases at 2,801. While his and he had 5 seasons of at least 180 hits and 100 runs scored and finished within the top 10 of AL MVP voting 6 times among second basemen in addition to hits and doubles. He sits at top of the list for home runs, 237 to 45 more than the runner-up, slugging percentage at .496, and OPS at .855. I forgot to mention that OPS is second to one man, and that is Mike Trout, which I'll cover. To believe me, he's on the list as well. Third baseman, but for my third baseman, I'm going to have to go with a homer pick. That's Adrian Beltre. Yeah, Beltre spent 2010 solidifying a Hall of Fame resume. He made the All-Star debut in 2010. By 2017, he had joined the 3,000 hit club before retiring in the 2018 season. In between, he carried a .307 average of the decade, drove in 100 runs 4 times, won 3 Gold Gloves and 3 Silver Slugger awards, and finished in the top 10 in AL MVP voting 5 times. Beltre finished his career of as the all-time leader among third basemen in hits, RBIs, and runs scored. I'm also going to go with another homer pick with Troy Tulowitzki for shortstop. It was basically a tale of two halves for him, who unquestionably the game most brilliant all-around shortstop to open the decade before injuries set in, unfortunately. Between the 2000 and 2015 portion, Tulo was a all-star 5 times, topped 20 home runs 4 times, and hit for a .306 average. He remained brilliant defensively, picking up a pair of Gold Gloves. No shortstop in a decade had more than Tulo's 5 seasons of both 20 home runs and defensive WAR of 2.0 or greater. Now I'm just going to read. We're getting close. We have 12 minutes left, so I'll just read who I have for the rest of my who I have for the rest of them. Outfield, I got to go with Mike Trout. Outfield, I got to go with Mookie Betts. Outfield, it's probably the only Pittsburgh Pirates player I have on my list, Andrew McCutchen. Designated hitter, I got to go with Nelson Cruz. Utility player, I got to go with Ben Zobrist. And starting pitcher, I got to go with Clayton Kershaw. If we get to that point where we still have time towards the end, I'll let you know who I have on my bench and other pitchers that I have on my roster as well. All right, off to the next topic. Next topic after I share this. So I have a question. So I'm actually going to answer this one first. I'm going to answer this in 2 ways. Out of everyone, at every game recorded in history, what is your probably the best MLB game to you?
I would definitely have to say, man, it's gonna be, that would be a toss up, but I would probably have to say that the most enjoyable game that I've watched on the Major League Baseball channel, when they replay some of the old World Series games and everything, would have to be Game 6. I think it was of the 1975 World Series, I believe. I may be mistaken. It was the Reds versus the Red Sox when Carlton Fisk hit that bomb over the Green Monster, um, well into extra innings, and he's just kind of hopping up and down the first baseline, just trying to wave the ball, go fair, 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 you know. Sadly for Carlton Fisk, he never did get that elusive World Series ring, but to push that game into Game 7 with a bomb like that, that's stuff that legends are made of. And I don't know, when I watched that game, I just watched it about a month ago when it was replayed again on the Major League Baseball Network. That's one of the most fun games. It was a very long game. I mean, I think the game lasted over like 15 innings or something like that. But yeah, when Carlton Fisk came up and just hit that bomb, and he was just kind of praying and hopping up and down, I think that has to be one of the best ones. And of course, the 1956 World Series when old Bill Mazeroski, hit that shot over center field to end the World Series for the Pirates. That was a pretty historic game too. But yeah, there's been some good ones. You could put in Whitey Ford's perfect game in the World Series. But for me, it's probably going back and looking at that old footage of Carlton Fisk, just the excitement that came with that game, and the town of Boston just erupting, well after midnight, hitting that bomb over the Green Monster, and the place was just completely on fire that night. And yeah, I'm sure a lot of drinks and everything were had late into the night over that one. But yeah, that's probably one for the record books there, that game.
As for me, I gotta go two. I gotta go two different games here. Both was the same matchup, same two teams playing, and both these games Rangers were the home team, and both these games I have been to. The one that I enjoyed the most, 2012, I believe the date was October 6th, 2012. Texas Rangers defeated the Seattle Mariners 12-5. And the reason why that is my favorite game is not because who is playing who, not because of the score, but it's because I delivered the game ball and Rosenbach to the pitcher's plate in the Rangers Stadium. That was my favorite game. But another one that is arguably another good game to watch. It was one that was more more entertaining to watch, but it was the 12-5 game was more memorable because of what happened personally to me. The more entertaining game to watch was back in 2018. Texas Rangers defeated the Seattle Mariners 11-10. Basically, Texas started off on a good note, scoring a 5-0 run, 5-0 game at the end of the first inning, and then Seattle, and then we scored more second, third, and fourth. It ended up being like it was a 10-0 game basically at the end of the fourth. And then Seattle slowly caught up, so it was tied 10-10 before the end of the eighth. And the ninth inning, Texas scored a home run. And Seattle did not. It was 11-10 final score. It was more entertaining to watch from both teams. We're now getting to that point to basically just wrap the show up in 5 more minutes. Stay tuned to watch Real Talk by me, by Jay, and by Kenneth. So, any final comments before we give this close?
I just want to say that it's really good to be on the network talking about sports and everything. A lot of things over the last few years have kind of rubbed me the wrong way, not just in sports, but in other aspects of life, the church and the sports world and everything. It just seemed like every time I had kind of a sanctuary with church or a sanctuary with really liking sports or any other avenue of life, it just seemed like politics were just kind of seeping into every aspect of life, and it was starting to make things very less enjoyable because nobody wants to go to church, and there's all kinds of drama and politics going on there. No one wants to really go and pay big money to go to a sporting event, and there's a lot of theatrics and a lot of politics going on, whether it's NFL, NBA, baseball, whatever it is. So it's just really exciting to see that for the most part, with some of these sports that they're starting to really figure out that, start to show that their appreciation more towards the fans. And it seems like they're starting to kind of take a lot of the politics away from it, or trying to remove themselves out of the politics a little bit. And that's what I enjoy seeing. I love watching these spring training games where it's just baseball, baseball, baseball. They're not talking about, who said this or who did that or what. They're just going out and playing hard and fighting for a spot on the team and everything. So it's just been very taxing in my personal life, and in a lot of people's life, not just with this pandemic going on, but just seeing politics everywhere. And I just want to make it clear that there's just more to life, than politics. There's more to life than whether someone's a Republican or Democrat or Libertarian or whatever. There's more to life than if you get your way or not. And I just love coming on here because I can state my opinions and I can listen to people's opinions, and nobody's yelling and fighting, and it's not becoming over dramatic. If you have an opinion, state your opinion, and that's what I love about this show, is that I can come in, give my thoughts, and you can give your thoughts, and other people can give your thoughts, and that's what I absolutely love about this network. So that's pretty much my final thought, is that this has been a new sanctuary for me, because we're not on here talking politics. We're just talking sports, and we're talking about all kinds of fun topics that a lot of people aren't talking about. Teams of the 2010s. Who our favorite second baseman of all time is. Who's the most underrated basketball player of all time. Just fun topics. And everybody's got a different opinion, and that's what I love. And I like to hear everybody's opinions and everything. And that's just kind of my final thought, is I just really enjoy this experience because it's really fun, and it's nice to get to know everybody and meet new people. And that's what I got for today.
So I just realized it is 8, and we still have 7 more minutes left, and we still have a topic to cover, and it started actually at 8:30 when Real Talk actually starts. That was a brain fart on my end, so apologize for that. But so we were talking about closes earlier, and so I have a question for you. Not the question isn't who is the best closer of all time, but who is number 2 for you?
Yeah, I have a couple guys in mind for number 2. Obviously, with 100% vote into the Hall of Fame, it's pretty clear that Mariano Rivera is definitely the number 1 in that category. Yeah. But for number 2, it's kind of a toss-up for me between Dennis Eckersley and Rich Goose Gossage. The funny thing about Dennis Eckersley is he didn't really become a full-time closer until he was around 32 years old, but he was still able to put up, over 350 saves during that time until he decided to retire. He had an excellent slider. He had excellent stuff. Him and John Smoltz definitely, put up over 100 wins starters before they became closers. So, that's good company. Two Hall of Famers there with John Smoltz and Dennis Eckersley with, over 100 wins and over 100 saves. That's something that you rarely see. So that's an interesting stat. Another pitcher that I just mentioned for the number 2 spot would be Goose Gossage. And I just put Goose Gossage in there because he had some really good pitches, and he was a pretty feared closer, back in the day for the Yankees and everything. And I guess the most interesting thing was that, it was almost impossible to hit a home run off of Goose Gossage. He just had excellent control, excellent command on the mound. And I mean, he's been rocked several times in his career, but, he just had such a good array of pitches and could definitely bring it. And it was just very hard to make excellent contact off the guy, so he was a definite solid presence, way back in the day for the Yankees. But I would probably say if I had to narrow it down to just one for the number 2 hole, it would probably be Dennis Eckersley. He just had tremendous success with the Oakland A's in the mid to late 80s. Went to 3 World Series, won a World Series title with them, had 387 saves, I believe, when it was all said and done. And he's just he did it all. He started, he worked out of the bullpen, became a closer, very effective closer. So my number 2 guy would probably be Dennis Eckersley.
So you kind of took my answer, so I'm actually going to go with my number 3 guy. My number 3 guy is actually Trevor Hoffman. He's he's flexible as tireless as a gymnast or as a tie. Closers are no exception, and Hoffman is the poster boy for sheer athleticism and conditioning. His repeatable delivery and terrific deposition would not have been possible without those. If there has ever been a more consistent shutdown ever, he does not last. He does not last as long as Hoffman. So that's my number 3. That's my number 3. You took my number 2, so I'm going with my number 3.
Yeah. The funny thing about Trevor Hoffman, you mentioned the athleticism. He definitely was very athletic, especially for that position, and only coming in for an inning or 2. It just seemed like when I was growing up and watching baseball in the early to mid 80s, a lot of these closers didn't even look like athletes. A lot of them kind of had like these kind of beer bellies, or their shirts were just kind of coming out of there. They come into the lineup, it looked like they just were watching TV one minute with drinking a beer or something, and then they come into the game, and the only difference between them and the average Joe is that they basically could throw 95 to 98 miles an hour, in the ninth inning, and that was about it. Other than that, they looked like an average. Had these dad bods. So, that was an interesting thing you brought up about Trevor Hoffman, because he definitely stayed in really tip-top shape throughout his career.
So that's all. I do have one more thing to say. So late July, I could very well be going to a Colorado Avalanche baseball game. To watch one of those in the stands.
You mean Rockies?
Yeah, Colorado Rockies. What is it with brain farts today?
I'll tell you what, though, bud. I think you got the Avalanche on the brain, because they're hot right now.
Yeah, they are. So this has been Nate and Greg signing out, and we'll see you guys next week.
All sports, all plays. All sports, all plays. All sports, all plays. 365, we making the plays. You talking the game, get you through the days. Great eye in the court, the dime in the lane. Variety, topics never the same. All presentation, sports information. In the airways, taking the nation. All sport, all plays, like working your faces. Grace up the field, so type the laces. All sports, all plays. Network. All sports, all plays. Network. We on top of our game. All sports, all plays. All sports, all plays.